Mayor Emanuel, thank you very much for joining me. You spent the bulk of your career in Washington. What was it that called you back to Chicago?
Well, first of all, this is home. And I got my chops in politics here, working for a community group. My first elected office is Congress. And I also grew up in a city where the mayor was,
The boss.
well, the mayor was the person that made things happen and could really drive things. Now, hold that for a thought for a second. There's always a lure of Washington. I mean, I did work for 2 presidents, and Congress was a job both here at home as well as representing people in Washington. But I actually think around the world, not just in the United States, the center of reform, the center of gravity for real change is not out of Washington, but in our cities. And so if you're about making things happen in public policy, you're about a place where there's a real sense of energy and capacity, cities are the name of the game. And I was done being chief of staff for the president, and I wanted to come home and be mayor. And I've always said I was going to
You've talked about
or I wanted to do it.
Chicago fulfilling its potential as a truly global city. What stands in the way of Chicago getting there?
First and foremost, I think Chicago is a global city. To continue to be a global city, and not just a global city, but a city that has a high quality of life, I got to make sure every part of the city participates in its greatness. Last year was our lowest homicide and crime rate since 1965 and 64 and 7.
Yeah, what, 415 homicides down from 500 the year before?
Yeah,
thereabouts.
506 to 415.
Still higher than New York, which was
and we have work to do. We always have been, but we have work to do. Lowest, the shooting rate came down 25% by a full quarter, and our overall crime rate is down to the lowest level since 65. Now, day in and day out, so you say what's the perception around the country or the world? I'm more concerned, got to be frank, as a mayor, I care about the perception that a mother feels safe enough to let their kids walk to school. That's the perception I'm focused on. I obviously, as mayor, also am concerned about the global, but I owe the people of the city of Chicago, regardless of where you live, to enjoy the same level of safety and security and psychology of safety that greater parts of other parts of the city do.
Stable finances is the pensions problem here is of the large cities in America. It's the big. You're not Detroit. You're not on the verge of bankruptcy. But of the big cities, you've got the biggest funding gap.
Yeah.
Are you going to fix this in 1 year, 2 years? I don't know.
Well, we have to fix it. Here's I didn't create this problem, and other people did. There were bad decisions made for a host of reasons. Mm-hmm. From day one, I've been about restructuring and fixing our fiscal house. As it relates to the pension issue, I need a partner. Where we've had partners, like in the Park District, 13 unions, we've solved it.
But with the policemen, the firefighters,
they have to come forward. You can't stay on the status quo.
Do you have to do this before your re-election campaign in 2015? You've got to fix this in the next year.
There's not a single challenge. Yes, one.
You do.
And yes, and as I like to say, or as I repeatedly say, denial is not a long-term strategy. It's a river in Egypt.
It's a river in Egypt.
But it's not a long-term strategy. We have a larger unfunded liability than any other major city. That wasn't created overnight. I'm not going to get out of it overnight. But we are day in and day out attacking it to solve it.
Strong schools. Now, you've lengthened the school day. You had the shortest school day, but the legacy is you haven't got the most ideal relations, to put it mildly, with the union, with the teachers, the Chicago Teachers Union. How big a problem is that for you in raising the performance?
Yeah. Well, since this may be the first time some of your readers and viewers, I said in the campaign, we have the shortest school day, the shortest school year, and I'm not going to allow that to stand. Not in a period of time where you're going to earn what you learn. We had after we were done, City of Chicago, time in school, time in classroom, increased by 30%. Largest of any school system in the country, ever. You go from kindergarten to high school now, you get 2.5 more years in the classroom than ever before. I think that's worth affecting a child's life. It's worth doing. We've put in place, for the first time, universal kindergarten. Every child now has a full day. And I gotta be honest, the attacks on me, they're nothing compared to the attacks on the kids they're going to take if they don't get a college education. And I'll take any hit on me as long as they have a good education.
Have to ask you, sort of in conclusion, about the famed Chicago political machine. What has happened to it? Does it exist anymore?
First of all, for all you out-of-towners, it hasn't existed for years. And as I said, ever since the invention and domination by TV, it's been in a rapid decline. There are still places, parts of the city. We love our political culture. We relish it. But the idea of a machine where somebody, the mayor, had the power to make careers and break careers, that's over. That's long gone, and it's no longer part of our active political culture.
A two-term mayor, three-term mayor, what would be ideal for you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we have to have the voters
agree with that. Assuming they agree,
they have a right. They have a vote. You should know this. I'm not running. I know I'm not running for anything else. I think this is the greatest job I've ever had in public life, and I have been uniquely fortunate both to have the confidence of the people of the north side of the city who voted for me for Congress, the confidence of both President Clinton and President Obama to work for them, but I've never been happier in public service of being able to make the changes I think are necessary for a great city. And I've really, really loved this job. And I joke with my predecessor, Rich Daley. I said, you always said this was a good job. I've come to the conclusion you say it's a good job because if anybody found out how great it was, they would have primaried you a long time ago.
Well, on that note, thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thank you.